Welcome to the Passenger Experience session, the PX curriculum, productivity, confidence, satisfaction, and transparency. The Q&A chat is open to your right, and we encourage you to ask questions of our speakers, as well as interact with one another. Full bios of our speakers are available by clicking on their names below this video, but I'll take a few moments to introduce each to you now. From Icomera, we have Paul Barnes, Chief Marketing Officer, Gabriel Lopez-Bernal, Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Lynn Bacigalupo, Project Manager, and Adriana Hemzacek, Director of Marketing for North America. From GoMedia, we have Matt Seaman, CEO, and Roger Matthews, Managing Director. So without further ado, I'll turn the presentation over to Paul.
So hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining with Icomera for today's session. My name is Paul Barnes. I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at Icomera. Next page, please. If you're asking yourselves what qualifies us to speak to you about the passenger experience today, I will do my best to reassure you that you're in safe hands. Icomera is the world's leading provider of wireless internet connectivity for public transport. And as such, we were responsible for developing and deploying the world's first onboard passenger Wi-Fi service. I think that in itself is pretty interesting, but just as interesting is the fact that we did it way back in 2003. The photo on your screens was taken on those same trains in 2015. So if you use your imagination, try and remember how much heavier those laptops were back at the turn of the century. It was 4 years before the release of the first iPhone, and forget 5G networks, 4G networks were still 6 years away. In the 18 years since we created the passenger Wi-Fi segment, we've seen it grow to become a standard component of the contemporary passenger experience. And in that same period, we've established a reputation for identifying and meeting the future requirements of your customer, the passenger. I'll be honest, we didn't see the pandemic coming before anyone else, but in a lot of cases, the industry's recovery plan, which is deeply rooted in digitalization, is going to utilize the same technologies that we've been advocating in forums like this over the past couple of years, albeit the timelines for mass adoption have been massively accelerated. And we're going to see much more focus on making safety measures more visible to the passenger. Let's turn to the next page. So prior to the pandemic, Icomera Wi-Fi was used by approximately 1.5 million passengers every single day. The graph you can see on your screen is the Icomera passenger Wi-Fi usage levels from 30,000 trains, trams, buses, and coaches in operation across Europe and North America. And those percentages are versus the corresponding weeks in 2019. Passenger Wi-Fi is a reasonably reliable tracker of ridership trends. So if you're familiar with other trackers of such things, then you'll be familiar with these peaks and troughs. There's the dramatic drop-off through March, the first wave low point during the week of April 6th, the early signs of a recovery stalling over the summer, and then the data from the last week in December, which I think reflects the very different winter holiday period that many of us experienced. Now, while I'm not going to argue that the last year has been anything but one of the most challenging times in living memory, I think the industry should also be applauded for the role it has played over the last year. Next page, please. So you'll remember that early on in the pandemic, public transport was mooted as a possible contributor to the spread of the virus. But by September, studies from all over the world had found little to no link between public transport usage and the spread of COVID-19, especially where safeguards such as face masks or more regular cleaning schedules were in place. In fact, as an industry, it had adapted as quickly as any other. Gymnasiums, bars, restaurants, cinemas, poorly ventilated office spaces, they've all proven to be more risky environments for the transmission of diseases. Public transport, in contrast, has continued to operate throughout the pandemic for those who needed it most. So I think it's safe to say that the societal, economic, and environmental benefits of public transport have remained clear throughout for anyone who's given the topic even a moment of consideration. Let's turn to the next page, please. Now, whether we measure the industry's recovery in terms of ridership numbers of leisure travelers or in terms of access for the more transit-dependent commuter, it is going to be propelled by real-time or on-demand access to information for both passengers and operators. And at Icomera, we call this the industry's internet-enabled recovery plan. I'm really pleased that we're able to take advantage of the format of today's event and bring together both our North American and international experts in their respective fields. The team is going to present the technologies and the strategies that we feel will underpin the future of travel. So now let me present our curriculum for today. Aiming to make the best use of your time with Passenger Experience 101 is Gabriel with Passenger Productivity. Next, Lynn is going to be making some bold statements in PX 201, Passenger Confidence. Roger is aiming to score high with PX 301, Passenger Satisfaction. And finally, the message from Matt Seaman will be very clear in PX 401, Passenger Transparency. And to remind you that all of our educators will be available in the chat during the session if you have any questions. But firstly, with a question of her own, I'm going to hand you over to today's quiz proctor, Adriana.
Paul, that was a fantastic overview of passenger experience. Thank you. As he said, I'm Adriana Hemzacek, Director of Marketing for North America at Icomera US. All right, folks, that takes us into quiz time, which brings us to our first question. And I think I'm going to call on Lynn. This one's for you. Question, what do 1.5 million people do on public transport every single day? Multiple choice for you today. A, do they miss their stop? B, use the toilet? C, connect to Icomera Wi-Fi? Or D, recreate their favorite scenes from planes, trains, and automobiles? Lynn?
Well, D is quite tempting, but I think I'm going to go with C, connect to Icomera Wi-Fi.
Lynn, that's correct. You passed Intro to PX, and now you can move on to the next course in the curriculum, which is PX 101. Gabriel, floor is yours.
Welcome to PX 101. I'm your guest lecturer, Gabriel Lopez-Bernal, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Icomera in North America. Today's lesson is focused on an innovative concept, how to create and foster a productive experience aboard transport services for passengers. Let's turn the page and dive in. We start by defining what influences passengers. These are tangible aspects of the service delivery that cause a passenger to have a positive or negative association with the quality of service provided. A memorable journey, if you will. Empirical research gathered by Icomera's customers, both public and private transport operators, over the past 20 years suggest that the following three features play the greatest role in influencing passengers. Across the board, the single biggest determinant when selecting a mode of travel is the passenger's trust in that mode's ability to provide frequent, reliable, and punctual service. Recognize that a passenger's time is incredibly valuable. Next up, health, safety, and comfort considerations. Customers will not only select the service if they do not believe it will transport them safely and comfortably. And in today's pandemic world, a clean and healthy environment is understandably more important than ever before. This last one may or may not surprise you. Connectivity. We live in a digital world, a world where our modern day interactions are best described by a series of actions, posts, snaps, shares, likes, tweets, swipes to the right, swipes to the left, and of course, memes. Operators that deliver these services meet these objectives, deliverable memorable journeys, and more importantly, these operators report specific benefits. The first one is increased revenue. Execute on these principles and operators recognize a net benefit on the bottom line. Increased efficiency, increased fares, new revenue opportunities. Societal benefits. While the environmental benefits of transport services are well documented, there are other societal benefits worth noting. For example, transit-dependent populations are some of the most disconnected populations in our society. Providing internet connectivity while in transit is a matter of delivering a more equitable service to our society. And the last one, increasing ridership and ridership retention. Delivering on these tenets allows operators to achieve new levels of ridership by attracting new patrons to the service and retaining repeat customers of the system, all while increasing the load factor and thus reducing the overall operating costs. And of course, this one is highly correlated to the connectivity that's provided on board the service. Let's turn the page. With the fundamentals in place, let's turn our attention to productivity, and more specifically, defining what passenger productivity is for transport. The definition is on the screen for each of you to read. As you read this definition to yourself, pause to think about a routine journey that was memorable. If you think that was a trick question, you're correct. Little is memorable when things are routine. Instead, you probably thought of the day when you missed your connection, the day when a collision closed the freeway and you arrived late for your meeting with the CEO, or the day that you hopped on that intercity bus without any Wi-Fi. The key to achieving productivity is a concept that we at Icomera like to call passenger pacification. Now, if you're anything like me, you're picturing a bus, a tram, a train, or a jitney full of happy, satisfied passengers. And that's the goal. The passengers have chosen to utilize your service and found it to be timely. The facilities are clean, safe, and comfortable. And there's a wireless network aboard that allows the passenger to remain connected, productive, and entertained throughout the journey. Connected to work, school, or social media, engaged and entertained with the latest news, hit, or binging on the latest drama. These passengers are making the most of their travel time, remaining productive, and less susceptible to voicing their displeasure when things don't go quite as planned. Which brings us to the next page in the lesson plan. How do we measure satisfaction? Icomera customers measure the benefit of their investments using a variety of means. Ridership, ticket sales, price elasticity studies, you get the idea. But these metrics really do not paint the full picture regarding satisfaction. For that, we turn our attention to social media, a place where, for this example, Bianca, a recent customer of your service, is actually an influencer with thousands of followers in your key market and target demographic. And that terrible experience you just had aboard your bus with the broken Wi-Fi, well, it just went viral. Ouch. But just as Bianca's negative experience can detract from your future business, a positive experience can turn passengers into powerful brand advocates. Let's have a look at a few examples. On the left, Miss Catherine is settled into her seat aboard the Amtrak Acela with her OJ, iPad, and a companion at her side, ready to embark on a memorable getaway. In the center, Jennifer is proudly showing her followers what it looks like to commute aboard Brightline, turning her trip across South Florida into added productive time. And below Jennifer, Jono is lamenting his decision to travel with a specific operator while hoping that his bus gets close enough to the competing service to connect to its Icomera Wi-Fi signal. Talk about brand advocacy, there's a ringing endorsement. And on the right, two passengers on different services are utilizing their travel time to catch up on their favorite sci-fi flicks. Icomera customers follow and measure satisfaction closely, with some organizations even tying executive compensation to customer satisfaction scores. How's that for some pressure? Across the board, our customers report a direct correlation between customer satisfaction and the quality of the Wi-Fi experience aboard. Some reporting jumps as high as 40 plus points when upgrading the experience to an Icomera solution. Let's turn the page. Productivity also equals increased opportunity. It's important to highlight that many transit-dependent populations face the longest commutes. These commuters also face the largest gaps in higher education achievement and the lowest rates of reliable internet connectivity in the household. For these riders, the connected commute is an extremely valuable part of the day. It's also important for operators to recognize that in today's world, all customers have a modal choice. Transport services must be innovative, deliver value, and provide features that help distinguish the service quality. There's a very simple formula that our successful transit operators will recognize. Working our way from the left to the right, after establishing a reputation for providing safe, reliable, and timely services, the operator makes an investment in a new amenity. These connectivity amenities are directly correlated to an increase in customer satisfaction. Next, as the adage suggests, a happy customer is a repeat customer. A good reputation coupled with the new publicity generates new transit customers. And all these effects have a positive impact on the operator's bottom line. And the net societal benefits include reduced emissions, increased productivity, and increased opportunity stemming from passengers making the most of their journey. As we turn to the final page in the lesson plan, you might be wondering how an operator goes about delivering a quality experience. Our company was founded on a single idea: to provide a reliable broadband internet connection to passengers in transit. We developed a technology that allows us today to virtually guarantee a connection to transport operators. It is achieved by using all available network capacity in space and time. Using the graphic as a guide, as the vehicle travels, the solution dynamically assesses multiple networks, multiple frequencies, and determines the optimal path to route traffic. This process occurs at a remarkably high frequency, ensuring a seamless experience for the end user. The solution is agnostic, allowing operators to better anticipate technology changes as they arise. For example, as the world upgraded its network capacity from 3G to LTE, and more recently as 5G networks begin to appear, it can utilize these standard commercial networks, private LTE, Wi-Fi, trackside, or private networks, or even satellites, individually or all at once to deliver a memorable experience. This technology is called SureWAN, and it is the heart of the connected journey by Icomera. Now put your books and notes away and prepare for your next quiz.
All right, that brings us to quiz time. I think this question will be going to Matt. Listen up, this one's for you. Don't worry, there's no formula involved. Question: how do transport operators provide a seamless connected experience? Is it A, a smile, B, install Wi-Fi, C, plug in the Ethernet cord, or D, onboard link aggregation? Matt?
Well, Adriana, I'd love it to be smile, but I think the answer here is D, onboard link aggregation.
Matt, that's correct. You've passed. We can now move on to the next curriculum, which is PX 201. Lynn?
Thank you so much, Adriana. I'm Lynn Bacigalupo, a project manager here in California with Icomera US. Next page, please. I'll be speaking today about passenger confidence. So what will it take to build that confidence, not only today, but also in the future to come? Well, you'll want to keep passengers well informed. You really want to be that reliable source of information, and that means consistency and accuracy. You'll want to consider the entire passenger journey, not just the part where the person is traveling with you, but the whole journey from doorstep to destination. You'll want to communicate throughout that journey. You'll want to be setting and resetting expectations as things will inevitably change, especially in this environment. And you'll want to meet the needs of all your passengers. So this means making experiences and communications that are accessible across all platforms. And finally, just a friendly reminder, you'll want to communicate in multiple languages, whatever is most appropriate to meet your passengers' needs. So I have a few examples to share with you today on how these elements come to life. Next page, please. To keep passengers informed, again, you'll want to consider their whole journey. So travel notifications are a great place to start. You have the opportunity to set expectations for the trip ahead. You can message about pre-boarding and priority boarding. You can inform them about delays, cancellations, updates due to changing COVID conditions. You can really help them optimize their journey by informing them of alternative routes as things may change. While each of these touch points might seem small individually, with each one, you're gaining trust and you're building that confidence. Next page, please. Keeping passengers informed continues as they travel through their journey in real time. And it's helpful to share updated information in one place, on mobile if possible. That way, passengers will always have it at their fingertips. Some information you might consider includes departure information, station or gate amenity information, so passengers can easily find food, restrooms, or whatever they need, onboard facilities such as Wi-Fi, so they know what to expect, schedule changes and other trip-specific information, like known maintenance or closed areas, onward journey information for connecting transit services such as buses, metros, trains, and finally, onward destination information, such as points of interest or nearby facilities. So in the graphic on the right, you can see an example of our onboard experience, and that includes that type of information. So simply streamlining the information in this way shows consistency and reliability, and that all that builds trust and confidence with passengers. Next page, please. Next, let's talk about accessibility. So accessibility is a really broad topic, and for this conversation, I'm going to focus on digital accessibility and how that can bring confidence to your passengers. So meeting WCAG guidelines for all your digital touchpoints is a really great place to start. This means providing equivalent access to information. So that might be captions and audio descriptions for videos, transcripts for audio content, and formats that can be easily interpreted by assistive technologies. Collaborating with accessibility experts is really helpful, as you can work with them to test your experience and have them test with the right audience. So assistive technologies continue to advance, and you'll want to be sure that your experience works well and that you understand how passengers are using those assistive tools to access transportation. And as this technology evolves, you can also begin to leverage more innovative solutions. For example, in the UK, we recently launched a project to increase access to relevant information for blind and partially sighted people. The solution was developed in conjunction with the Royal National Institute for the Blind. The solution has passengers point their mobile device at a simple graphical marker, either in station or on board. So the device then reads that marker and receives a location-based video content, which is then overlaid into an augmented reality experience. You can see in the graphic on the right. Some of the features include information about amenities and directions. One thing that's interesting about this solution is that there's no need for the marker to be in focus, no need for the device to even be steady or to be closer than 90 feet away for the solution to work. So you can see the goal really is to provide greater access and more independence to passengers while they are traveling across public transportation. Next page, please. Finally, to build confidence, you want to reach the broadest audience possible, which brings us to multilingual support. So look at your non-English experience and see how it compares. Are you providing the same touch points in all languages? With the ever-changing information this day, are your communication plans really keeping up? So you want to identify any gaps here and, of course, make a plan to take action. And for an example here, you can see our Wi-Fi solution offered in multiple languages, and that experience continues into our media and entertainment solutions as well. So in summary, the best way to build passenger confidence is to be consistent and reliable source information to the broadest audience possible across the entire passenger experience, from doorstep to destination. Adriana?
Lynn, that was some really cool stuff you're doing. Really exciting to hear. Thanks for that overview. Crash course in PX 201. All right, quiz time, everyone. Next page. All right, that brings us to our next question, and this one is going to be for Roger. Go ahead and unmute. You're in the hot seat. Question: what does it mean for a passenger to be confident? Okay. Now, is it A, multiple choice? Is it a monthly pass? Is it B, a seat next to the door? C, information on which platform to board? Or D, is it a snack for the ride? Roger?
Right, so I was listening carefully to Lynn, and I'm going to go for C, information on what platform to board.
Great job, Roger. You passed, and now you can move on to the next course in the PX curriculum. We have PX 301. Roger, why don't you tell us a little bit about passenger satisfaction?
Cool, thanks, Adriana. I'm Roger Matthews, MD at GoMedia. I joined around 5 years ago, and what excites me about joining GoMedia was the potential of the digital experience on board and the impact that we could actually make to passenger satisfaction. Next page, please. So I think, as Gabe covered, passenger satisfaction, it has a few main drivers, and the main satisfaction drivers that we see are safety and punctuality. But once you've got past the main satisfaction drivers, what else has an impact on customer satisfaction? New trains, schedule changes, all of those things either take massive capital investment or take a long period of time to change. What we've discovered through research and feedback from our onboard services is that actually onboard digital hubs can dramatically impact passenger satisfaction. We've got a couple of examples here. Greyhound saw a 40% increase in NPS scores when they implemented our onboard digital service. Virgin Trains did lots of independent research, and some of the research that came out suggested that 29% of their passengers considered travelling on a Virgin train as opposed to other modes of transport because it had an onboard digital service on board, and that was our entertainment service. Other information also suggests that if you've got an onboard entertainment system on board, passengers perceive the length of their journey to reduce. And if a passenger believes that the length of their journey has reduced, they're more likely to take that journey. So again, to Gabe's points in the first session, it's increased passenger travelling and also increased revenues for operators. Next page, please. So passenger satisfaction can be impacted by onboard services. So what content should we actually be considering putting on board? Well, content is more than just entertainment, although I have to say Hollywood movies, Hollywood TV always do well on the services that we launch. But also I think we need to dig below just the obvious blockbuster movies and the Hollywood TV. We need to think about contextual content as well. And this is really important for operators who service the local communities. So features on what's happening in the local community, information about what people can do when they actually get to destinations, moving maps with points of interest. So even if you're a regular traveller, you start learning about your local environment. Or if you're a visitor to that locality, you can also find out about what is around and what you can actually go off and do. I think the other thing around onboard entertainment is that you can show off new experiences as well. So we've launched virtual reality. We can put 4K video on board trains for people to download to their handsets. I love the idea of forward-facing cameras, especially on train lines that run through locations that have 4 distinct different seasons, and actually having that content on board. So when I'm going through the Rocky Mountains, I can see it in the fall, in the winter, in the summer. It just brings things alive. So I think we can be creative. We can do competitions, promotions, augmented reality. You can also do local social networking as well, using the local Wi-Fi environment. I think public transport still offers a massive captive audience, and predominantly they're digitally untapped on board. So I think we need to think about how can we use this to impact positively passenger satisfaction, but also what benefits can that actually bring you and your partners. Next page, please. So key to success is to understand your passengers, their demographics. What do they want? How often do they travel? Are all factors that will dictate what content we actually and you put on board. Entertainment is part of the digital experience, but also we've seen massive usage and massive positive feedback on putting real-time journey information delivered on board direct to passengers' handsets so they can take control of their journey. As Lynn was saying, if a train gets delayed, tell the passenger. They can then start rerouting themselves when they get to their destination. I can phone my wife. I can tell my mates I'm going to be late to the pub. In a post-pandemic world, guiding passengers through their journey with fewer physical touch points is also crucial. We need to build confidence in travelling, and the digital experience can certainly help that. I think also it's worth remembering that actually what we talk about today is a software solution. So we can actually react really fast to changes in the environment and update all of our content and experiences remotely. Next page, please. So onboard portals can definitely increase passenger satisfaction. Content and information can be consumed directly on passengers' devices, giving them control. Typical content areas you can see on the right-hand side are movies, TV, real-time information. Newspapers and magazines are brilliant. We're removing carbon from the train. People can actually look at magazines and newspapers using their own device. Ebooks and podcasts as well. I think it's worth also understanding, and Matt's going to talk about it in a moment, that these portals, they don't have to be a one-way communication device from you to the passengers. Passengers can also communicate with you, the operator. And also, just as a footnote to this slide, typically our portals are actually seen more by passengers than operator apps and also their social media channels. So it's a really important tool which we collectively can use. Adriana, over to you.
Well, Roger, we're only going to get to the next session in the curriculum if Paul gets this question right. So Paul, unmute. Your question is, what service did Richard Branson say had the biggest impact on passenger satisfaction in 10 years on Virgin trains? Is it A, room service, B, onboard entertainment, C, roadside assistance service, or D, turn down service? Paul?
That's a great question. As you know, Britain is a very small country, so we all know each other. And Roger, Matt, and I regularly converse with Sir Richard over a cup of tea. So I know that he would probably be a very strong advocate of onboard entertainment. So that's my answer, B.
That's right. Great job, Paul. You passed, and now we can move on to our final stage in the PX curriculum. We're going to move on to PX 401, Passenger Transparency with Matt.
Thank you, Adriana. Yes, Matt Seaman. I'm a CEO and founder of GoMedia. I think I look quite young when that photo was taken. But last year we were very happy to become part of the Icomera family. So hence our involvement today. So thank you. Next slide, please. We've heard some great stuff from Lynn on passenger confidence, and I think Roger very well summarised the importance of passenger satisfaction. What I wanted to talk very briefly about today is passenger transparency and understanding more about the passenger. We at GoMedia have spent the last few months talking to operators all around the world, and I think we've had a few key takeouts which hopefully will resonate with our audience today. Firstly, COVID has changed absolutely everything. It's virtually like COVID has pressed a reset button on the relationship between the operator and the passenger, the onboard passenger. And we believe going forward, the passengers are going to be a lot more demanding and a lot more expectant of the services that the operator is going to deliver them. At the same time as being more demanding, passengers are going to be more nervous. And I think they're going to seek a lot more reassurance from their operator as well. What we also know, but we yet don't understand, is travelling habits will have changed. Even passengers, I think at this stage, do not know how they're going to be travelling in the future, whether they're going to be travelling as much at different times. I don't think they know that yet. And I think we're all going to be looking at the employers to see how they work the office working hours and the home working hours going forwards. So I think the key question really is, in all of this uncertainty, how do we understand the post-pandemic passenger and how do we answer their needs? Next slide, please. Well, the good news is that onboard Wi-Fi, as Gabriel was talking about earlier, gives fantastic opportunities for increased connectivity. But what it also gives gives operators is the ability to have a two-way communication channel, as Roger mentioned, with passengers. The last 2 years, GoMedia have been developing what we call our vision platform, which gives us the ability to capture onboard passenger feedback. And as we all know, you're going to be giving feedback a lot more honestly when you're actually on board rather than 2 days later on an email or whatever. We combine this onboard feedback from the passengers with the service and the vehicle details that the passenger's traveling on. And what that means is that we get feedback from the passengers, which is both actionable and in near real time. And of course, we share that with our operators. The GoMedia Vision platform can also do trend analysis of passenger feedback and also passenger sentiment analysis as well. And so what we can see over time is satisfaction increasing or decreasing over time by route, by service, by day of the week, perhaps. And also what we can see is whether improvements, so maybe timetable changes, have had the desired impact or whether they've decreased passenger satisfaction. So it's a really strong, powerful tool to get feedback directly from the customers that is actionable and usable. We've also done solutions where we've integrated with the transit police around the world, in the USA and other countries. And what this means is that we allow passengers to directly contact the police if they're on board and there's an issue. Now, why is that important? Well, firstly, from the police's point of view, they get actionable information from passengers. Again, we tell the police what service and the calling pattern of the train that the passenger is on. And of course, we share that information with the operators as well. And of course, what that means for the passenger is that they're more reassured because they know that there's help at hand if there is anything that goes wrong on the train. Next slide, please. We've also developed some other functionality, for example, what we call Share My Ride. And we've launched this on several operators, including Capital Corridor in California. And what we allow customers to do is through messaging platforms or social media, passengers can contact their loved ones. And using our platform, we allow their loved ones to track their journey in real time, including any delays, cancellations, or any other issues. And we expect this functionality to be used very significantly in the post-pandemic world. For example, by parents, for the first time that they let their children go on board by themselves once the pandemic is over. And again, more reassurance for the passengers. We've also introduced, and Roger mentioned it, direct messaging functionality that allows the operator, the control center at the operator, to directly message the portal on the train to again give details of delays, reasons for delays, or any issues with onboard journeys. And again, what this means is transparency for the customer, understanding what's going on, and reassurance that they're being thought of by the operator. So in summary, I think onboard connectivity is fantastic for all the reasons that Gabriel said earlier about allowing connectivity for the passenger. But what it also does, apart from great Wi-Fi, is it gives that two-way communication channel between the passenger and the operator that both helps the passenger, but also gives the opportunity for us to understand the post-pandemic customer. So with that, I'd like to hand back to Adriana.
Matt, thank you so much. Well, we got through PX 101 all the way to PX 401. Now, Gabriel, I understand you did not go to a Big Ten university, but you are a VP, and I'd say University of Florida should be able to cut it for this question. So unmute, please. This question's for you, Gabriel. How can we understand the post-pandemic passenger? Is it A, call them? Is it B, organize a Teams meeting? C, integrate a real-time passenger feedback solution? Or D, simply look at their facial expressions? Gabriel, what's your answer today?
I think over the last 12 months, we've all had our fill of Microsoft Teams meetings. I don't think our passengers would appreciate us reaching out in that format. So I'm going to say it's option C, integrate a real-time passenger feedback solution on board and get that feedback from the passenger in real time. Awesome.
Very good. Everyone got the quiz answers correct. Fantastic. I think we are ready to close up the curriculum for PX. All right, Gabriel, close us up.
Excellent. Yeah, no, thank you to all the guest lecturers here that joined us here today, Roger, Lynn, Matt, Paul, and of course, Adriana for serving as our proctor. This last slide here really touches on the full end-to-end experience that you want to create for your passenger. Passenger confidence and satisfaction is about building consistency across all aspects of the experience. And as an operator, it's essential to identify the key touch points that you're going to have with your passenger and anticipate their needs to the best of your ability. And then leverage these opportunities to create a memorable experience that turns this passenger into a repeat customer of your service. And what you see here on the graphic is what we call the connected journey. And it begins before that passenger has even left their house in the morning or begin the commute. And you want to communicate proactively with that customer regarding the quality of the services that are going on that day, the weather, anything that could be impacting their journey and could be impacting their ultimate decision to travel. And as they're en route, it's important to provide that proactive communication to that customer and provide connectivity from the moment they arrive at the station. And as Matt and team talked about, giving personalized passenger information is key. What platform to wait, what bus is going to be arriving, at what time it's going to be arriving. Proactively communicating all of this to your customer is part of creating a seamless experience and a memorable journey for the passenger. And then as the passenger boards, integrated connectivity, seamless connectivity is key. High quality internet that allows your passenger to remain connected, a high quality onboard entertainment experience, as Roger talked about, that allows the passenger to binge on the latest Hollywood movies if they want to, or to remain productive on the internet. And then making sure that you collect feedback from those passengers in real time. You have a captive audience on board the services. Give them the opportunity to let you know how you're doing. Give them the opportunity to give you the feedback in real time, and give them the opportunity to report any suspicious activity that they see, anything that you should be aware of that could allow you to improve the quality, safety on board your transit services. And consistent messaging and branding and timeliness of information throughout this entire process is key. So we'll ask you here to reflect. Look at this image and this journey as an example, and think about what your organization is doing well. Where are you reaching your customers? Where do you have gaps in the way that you communicate and provide information to your passengers? And how do you resolve those gaps? It's helpful for our customers to map out the passenger journey in this way to see exactly how you're engaging with your passengers throughout all aspects of the journey. We at Icomera and GoMedia look at the passenger journey from an overall perspective, from the moment you leave your doorstep to the moment you arrive at your destination. And you should too. Next slide. So the key takeaways, let's just read these straight off here. Recovery is going to be driven by real-time and on-demand information for all. Passenger confidence, it's important for you as an operator to be consistent and reliable in your communication. As Roger talked about, onboard entertainment can cater to your daily commuters as well as visitors alike. And then lastly, utilize the power of the onboard connectivity to create a two-way communication channel with your customer. This is a key digital touch point. It's probably the primary digital touch point that your organization is going to have with riders for the longest extent of the journey. Leverage it, utilize it correctly, and turn it into a memorable connected experience. Thank you.
Guys, that was great. That was action-packed, entertaining, informative. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us all today. Again, many thanks to Paul, Gabriel, Lynn, Roger, Matt, and Adriana. Today's session will be available here in the Passenger Experience event platform for the next 6 months. And on behalf of the Passenger Experience, as well as our sponsors, we thank you all for joining us. But don't go too far away because there's much more to come.